What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. Welcome to my channel. We are through week 8 of the college football season. November is just around the corner, just one more weekend in October to go. And hey, here are my New Year's Six bowl game and college football playoff predictions, at least the way things sit right now. Got to tell you, if you keep up with this series and you go back and look at last week, there is basically no change to my predictions from last week. However, I am going to talk about my opinions on teams coming up here, and we do have one minor change, so stick around to find out what that is. But we're going to try to make this video a lot faster than the others. I know I feel like I say that every video, but I'm really going to try to do this time because, again, there just aren't a lot of changes. But hey, thank you guys for all the support the channel has seen as of late. As of recording this video, almost to 1,600 subscribers. Let's try to get there. If you guys want to share your support, again, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you know when videos get uploaded. But again, there are more ways than that to help me support my channel. You're doing one right now by watching the video, and you can do more by liking, commenting, sharing, and anything else that you guys may be willing and or able to do to help me support my channel. Anything means a lot to me. So let's just dive right on in. You see the playoff bracket on screen, and we're going to dive through it here really, really quickly because there are no changes to my college football playoff bracket, although before I reveal the teams, in case you haven't been keeping up with this series, this may be the first video of mine you're watching, the gaps are closing, right? And we're starting to really figure out who the teams that could possibly make the college football playoff are. There's a huge elimination game basically in Salt Lake City this week between Oregon and Utah. Both those teams have one loss. The loser definitely eliminated from college football playoff contention the way things are going. But let's dive on into the 4 teams that I do have going on. One is the Michigan Wolverines. I've talked about it a lot. I feel like Michigan is the most complete team in the country right now. And I know that there are people that are going to say, well, they haven't really been tested yet. I mean, they've dominated every single opponent that they've played. So, again, Michigan being the #1 overall seed will choose where they go. They will probably end up picking the Rose Bowl game there in Pasadena, which Michigan's not going to. Well, actually, I should say the team that I have in #2 in Georgia is not going to complain with the site they get because they're left with the All-State Sugar Bowl. But, again, these two teams have kind of felt like all year long they've been the top 2 teams in the nation throughout the season, and that's still the way that I see it playing out, right? Georgia does have a lot of interesting games down the stretch. You have Florida, you have Tennessee, you have Ole Miss, you have Missouri still to come up there on that schedule. But when I take a look at both of these two programs here, I mean, again, Michigan has been dominant. Yeah, they haven't really had a true elite test yet. They're going to get that in November with that 3-game stretch at the end of the season with Penn State, Maryland, and Ohio State. Michigan does have a bye week this week after they throttled their rival in Michigan State. And I know there's a lot of cloud and controversy surrounding the Michigan program, but as far as talking about the football that they have played on the field, they've looked like the best team in the country. Let's move on over again to the team you see at #2, the Georgia Bulldogs. Not having Brock Bowers is definitely going to hurt. However, him only being out 4 to 6 weeks, he definitely could be back in time to play in the SEC championship game if, again, Georgia ends up making it that far. And at the very least, he will be back for the college football playoff or whatever bowl game Georgia happens to make, right? I would hope that he gets back maybe before the Georgia Tech game or maybe before the game there in Atlanta in the SEC championship game, again, if Georgia is the team to come out of the East. Still don't really know. There's still a lot of things that could play out. Georgia needs a big one here this week when they play Florida. But not having Brock Bowers is really, really going to hurt them. Now, it's not to Georgia's fault, right? This is still a good football team even without Brock Bowers, but that's a huge part to what they do offensively. It'll be really interesting to see what sort of happens with the Georgia Bulldogs moving on down the line, right? #3 and #4 have also stayed the same. I still got the Florida State Seminoles here at #3, and I still got the Washington Huskies here at #4. If you want to flip those two teams, hey, go for it. Again, these are just kind of my personal rankings, but I do believe that these will be the 2 games that we see in the college football playoff field, at least the way everything is projecting out right now, right? I mean, all of these teams still sit undefeated. They're one of 9. These 4 are 4 of 9 undefeated teams left across the country. Florida State had a little bit of trouble with Duke, and it took Riley Leonard going out for Florida State to really be able to pull away, although that was Duke's offense not really being able to catch up as Florida State's offense was really able to figure out that Duke defense late, right? Although not having Riley Leonard definitely made the game seem a little bit more lopsided on the scoreboard than it actually was. But Florida State still sits undefeated. They are the team that if the ACC is going to get someone in the college football playoff, Florida State's the only remaining undefeated team. North Carolina definitely had a shot, but they just lost in a terrible way to the Virginia Cavaliers. So it's Florida State show in the ACC. And then for the Washington Huskies, you have the big win over Oregon, and there are a lot of opportunities for some other big wins coming up on the schedule. USC is still on the schedule. Now, people can say what they want about the USC Trojans. That would still be a big-time marquee win for Washington. A lot of other tough games coming up on the schedule as well. And then my semifinal, my national championship prediction, again, they've stayed the same, right? I still got Michigan making the college football playoff championship game. Same thing with the Georgia Bulldogs. And the Michigan Wolverines will win the national championship at the end of the day. However, before I move on to the New Year's Six bowl games, I have to talk about, right, the gap is closing. There is still not really anything set in stone yet. And, of course, you still have Texas and Oklahoma. They're out of the Big 12. The reason they are on here, and it showed last week, they're not really surefire bets to get into the college football playoff. Now, mind you, Florida State and Washington aren't surefire bets, but I feel better about them than I do either Oklahoma or Texas, which is why they've been in my playoff bracket over the past couple of weeks. And you go and take a look at some other teams, even from the same conferences, like Oregon. If they beat Utah, they get to the Pac-12 championship game, maybe in a rematch with Washington. They win that game, they're probably in the college football playoff. The Ohio State Buckeyes, if conferences like the Pac-12 and the ACC, maybe even the SEC, are going to beat each other up a little bit here, there still is a path, even if Ohio State loses that game to Michigan, to get into the college football playoff. With Penn State, it's going to take a little bit of navigating there as well. You're going to need to probably hope for a three-way tie, or for Ohio State or Michigan to get upset later on down the line. But regardless of what else happens, I believe this is the four-team format, or I should say the four teams that I have making the format right now. Again, final year for four teams here, but we're going to run really quickly here through the New Year's Six bowl games because for the most part, they are the same. Still got Oklahoma and Alabama squaring off here in the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic. Oklahoma's definitely got a rebound against that performance against UCF. They did have a bye week after Red River, came out a little sluggish. Huge opportunity here for a true road game. Their first since going to Nippert Stadium and playing Cincinnati here against a much tougher opponent in the Kansas Jayhawks. Is it going to be Jason Bean? Is it going to be Jalen Daniels? Remains to be seen, but that's a Kansas team that has a lot of firepower, much like what UCF has, and Oklahoma's got to be able to step up if they want to avoid the upset bid. And the Alabama Crimson Tide was not a pretty first half against the Tennessee Volunteers, a much, much better second half against that team, and Alabama was able to pull away. They are finally on bye week before a big matchup here, not this coming weekend, but next weekend against LSU, a game that will likely, very likely, decide who ends up winning the SEC East, as Alabama already, or the SEC West, my apologies, as Alabama already has the tiebreaker over the Ole Miss Rebels. So that's definitely going to be something, a game to look forward to here in a couple of weeks. But I still got these two teams facing off in the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic. Still got these two squads facing off in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowls. Now we go to the other Big 12 team, and that's the Texas Longhorns. Still a team, much like Oklahoma, much like Bama, that can still get into the college football playoff. But Texas had a sluggish performance of their own this past week against the Houston Cougars. So they're going to need to be a team that's going to need to pick up some steam as well. Now, they do not have a super, super difficult game until a little bit later down the line on their schedule. In fact, I still believe TCU is coming up here relatively quickly for the Texas Longhorns, but still a great shot to win out there. You probably just want to see them play a lot better of football than what they did last week against the Houston Cougars. The Cougars made it tough on the Longhorns, that's for sure. And then my current group of five front runner, just narrowly edging out the Tulane Green Wave. Of course, James Madison cannot make a New Year's Six bowl game because of the transition between FCS to FBS. And a lot of people's top 20 right now are the Air Force Falcons. Again, only one of 9 remaining unbeaten teams throughout the entire nation. And Air Force has played some really good football so far this year. So really impressed from what I've seen from the Air Force Falcons. They right now are sitting here as the group of 5 champion. They were able to beat Navy even without their starting quarterback. This is an Air Force defense that's playing really, really well. An offense that leads the country in rush yards per game. This is an Air Force team that I've just been very, very impressed with. They're in a New Year's Six bowl game ahead of Tulane. Here's where the change comes in. This is a spot where I've had North Carolina, and you could still throw North Carolina here in the Capital One Orange Bowl, but I'm going with the Louisville Cardinals right now. You could also throw in the Duke Blue Devils and maybe a little hint as to what is coming down the road, right? But Louisville sitting with the best record in the ACC besides that of Florida State, tied with that of North Carolina. And both of them have a couple really shaky losses there, right? I mean, it really right now is a coin flip between UNC and Louisville, but I think the schedule sets up a little nicer for Louisville. So this is kind of one of those moments where you have to project outward a little bit, and Louisville is a team that I have just projecting outward a little bit better than what North Carolina does right now. And then you look over at the Ohio State Buckeyes, a team that right now is number 5 for me. They are this close to breaking into my college football playoff field. And again, another opportunity to get a big marquee win on the road against Wisconsin, albeit the Badgers have been up and down this year. Still going to be a pretty good win, but Ohio State is really flipped their mentality. That is a defensive-led team now. Granted, the offense still has a cheat code in Marvin Harrison Jr., and they are not fully healthy yet. So it'll be interesting to see how the Buckeyes adjust. Can't wait for that game on November 25th against the Michigan Wolverines. That game is going to be a lot of fun. All right, let's go ahead and dive on in now to my last game, which, again, did not change. I still believe, even though Penn State, I don't think played their best football against the Ohio State Buckeyes, still have them making a New Year's Six bowl game. They're here in the Verbo Fiesta Bowl. This team still has all the talent in the world defensively. They still have one of the best backfields, at least talent-wise, when you take a look at the running back room in the country, and Katron Allen, Nick Singleton. Drew Aller's a decent enough quarterback, but the offensive play calling maybe has to get a little bit more creative, and this is an offense as well that definitely is going to have to prove they can move the ball down the field at some point, especially if you want to go out and beat a team like Michigan, even though that game is at home. And then the Oregon Ducks here, right? Again, the elimination game against the Utah Utes coming up this week. The loser likely out of college football playoff and Pac-12 championship contention. Right now, I believe Oregon is the favorite in that game, so I am going with Vegas here. Still believe Oregon is a top 6 team in the nation, at least a top 10 team. They're very, very talented. Love the way Bo Nix is playing. Oregon is sitting here. A little bit of a lull against Washington State to start off, but they were able to fire it back up. You need a quick start against a team like Utah there on the road. But again, we'll give you one more look at my playoff bracket. Didn't change from last week, and only the one team changed in the Louisville Cardinals. It was a quicker video than it has been in the past, so I technically did get it right. Maybe not as quick as some people would have liked it, but oh well. Hey, that's going to do it. Let me know your thoughts, your college football playoff field, anything you want to talk about in the comment section down below. And hey, as always, remember to play hard but tailgate harder. I'll see you guys in the next video. Week 9 predictions. We'll continue on with 2 more today. Goodbye.